And so she finds herself now in a rather profoundly disturbing situation with a betrayal or two or three in the relationship. And for the first time in her life, she has a voice, and she has a voice that's roaring with anger.
Welcome to Every Part of Us. We are two psychologists named Ruth from opposite sides of the world who are passionate about Schema couples therapy.
This model provides a powerful and unique toolkit to help therapists work with complexity in couples. So in this episode, Wendy Behary will be talking us through the thorny topic of how to help couples in the aftermath of an affair when the betrayed partner can't let go of their mistrust and has the urge to keep punishing the other. And Wendy brings real insight to guide us through this tricky landscape and demonstrates how to bring healing in partners who are really stuck in this dynamic.
Yes, and today we have the lovely Wendy Behary from New York, whose experience has been profound, actually, in shaping how we do Schema couples therapy. Her work, particularly with people on the narcissism spectrum, has been groundbreaking in providing a way of understanding some of the deep long-term drivers of narcissistic behavior, and also working with couples to start to build empathy, build understanding, and do deeper healing in the wake of ongoing betrayals and affairs. So welcome, Wendy. We're very pleased to have you. And I guess we want to maybe hone in a little bit on today's conversation for not so much the person who's done the betraying, but the partner who perhaps is really struggling to develop trust, to let go of any anger if there's been some change. They themselves can find themselves stuck in this work. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Wendy. And yeah, we'd love to hear from your experience in this area.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. And Ruth, it's great to be with you again. And yeah, this is a really challenging, I call it a bit of a phenomenon that happens in couples work in the process of healing from conflict, usually high stakes conflict like betrayal. And you add narcissistic layer to this, and then you have, again, that high entitlement, low empathy, sometimes coercive control and other forms of exploitation, manipulation. So it's very, very challenging. And for the betrayed partner, the person sitting on the other side, that tendency, I mean, let's think about it like this. If I'll say she, we'll just use that pronoun for now. We know this can happen with he or she, but I'll say she. If she is someone who throughout her life has been silenced since she was little, with a critical parent, with abuse in her background, with a low sense of self, she's come into this relationship with this heroically charming narcissistic person who has swept her off her feet and little by little has chipped away once again at her self-esteem because of the narcissism. And so she finds herself now in a rather profoundly disturbing situation with a betrayal or two or three in the relationship. And for the first time in her life, she has a voice. And she has a voice that's roaring with anger, an anger that she has never been able to express safely anywhere in her life, never even felt entitled to it. But this has given her a sense of self-righteous entitlement to be angry and to express that anger. And boy, she doesn't really want to give it up. She doesn't want to give it up because it feels so soothing, not just in the present moment of the conflict with her partner, but in her whole life. It drives itself all the way down to that little girl who could never say, stop it, that's not fair, you're hurting me, could never utter those words. It was too dangerous to do that once upon a time. So she is very well seated and comfy in this position of anger and not wanting to let it go, not wanting to celebrate any victories that might be taking place in the couples therapy, not wanting to show any appreciation or acknowledgement of any shifts or changes that might be happening when the narcissist is beginning to bend and flex a little bit. It's a very tricky problem.
Really, really tricky. I agree, Wendy, because ultimately we're asking, this partner to forgive And here they've got a lifetime of wounds that are being, that are raw and felt. And I wonder, I mean, how do you think about sort of helping therapists to dig deep in sort of helping the wounded partner in sort of letting go of some of this mistrust and anger?
Well, we start by identifying it straight out. So once you see a pattern, so make sure it's a pattern. It's not just a blip. It's not just a bad day, where they're having an angry outburst because it just feels so overwhelming. It's really become a pattern where you as a therapist are saying, you can be cautiously optimistic about this. He is beginning to show a little bit of change. He's paying more attention to your needs. He's actually initiating some empathic investigation into how you're feeling when he sees something that might be triggering. I'm not saying he's all better and he's all good. You don't have to give him a parade or throw him a party or give him a gold star. But how about just, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I appreciate that. I noticed. I just wanted you to know that it didn't go unnoticed by me, that you're making an effort to see me and to know me and to make me feel safe. How about that? And she says, no, I'm not going to be a doormat. I'm not going to do that, because then we're going to be right back to square one. I'm going to be taken advantage of. And, no, he's going to think that everything's all better and the work is done. Sure, I can appreciate that. That's scary. That must be terrifying, right? Yes, it's terrifying. And it makes me angry even to think about giving him 1 ounce of credit. I'm sure, especially if you expect that this is all sort of a ruse or some kind of a, playing with your feelings only so that he can get back to his fun and games, right? Feels like I'm kind of colluding in that with him. You feeling a little angry with me? Well, I'm a little frustrated. I think your expectation is just not realistic. It's not taking into account that I'm so deeply wounded and scared. Yeah, and that's the last thing I would want you to feel. So I appreciate you telling me that's hard for you, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like it's coming easily, but I know that once upon a time there was a little you who could never have uttered those words to your mom or to your dad, even, who was not protective, but your mom, who was pretty ruthless in terms of her ways in which she treated you. Well, no, I couldn't have. I never did. I never had this voice, and I'm not giving it up. I don't think you should ever give up your voice. The problem is that I want you to be heard. And I don't think you can be heard when you're in a constant state of anger. I'm also worried about the toll it takes on your nervous system, your body, your health, just to be angry all the time. I know there's something really important behind that anger, and I have to help you. I want to help you to be able to summon up the courage to figure out what that is and really express that hurt, that sadness, that worry, that fear, that shame, that doubt, whatever it might be, even the joy in seeing some of these shifts that's so hard to express. And
so
she says,
beautiful. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, and I'm just, I mean, I don't want to make it a whole session, but I think it's so important that we're able to drive home the idea that this is a space now for that little you to express anger. So we identify that this is also a mode and it has found its home. The problem is that it's camouflaging. It's not representing completely all the feelings that need to be heard and felt. So again, we craft the language that best matches the intention. And I help her again to try on words and feelings. It's just to feel it too. Like, I'm so scared. I want to trust you. And I know there's a part of me that's so angry that would just rather punish you for the rest of time. But that's depriving me too, if I do that. And so I I do appreciate the changes you're making. I see the effort you're making, but you have to understand that I'm so cautious in my hope, and I know we have so much work to do. So we're giving her that kind of security and being able to put the gesture out there, because it's important for the partner who's working so hard to get some feedback, not just from the therapist, but also from the wounded other.
Mm. One of the really important parts of healing for couples after a betrayal, after maybe many betrayals, is as the couple start to process what's happening, as the person who's been betraying starts to earn trust, there often comes a point in the therapy where the person who's been hurt, who's been betrayed, needs to perhaps start giving some trust to their partner. And that's actually a really delicate moment in couples therapy, because there needs to be early in treatment, openness and a point of honesty, of sharing and rebuilding. But then there's a tipping point where the partner who's been betrayed may actually need to start giving a little bit of trust, starting to allow themselves to believe in the partner again, or hope for good things. And that's a challenging part of the treatment process. Love about that, how you do that, Wendy. And I think in Schema, one of the great opportunities we have is to notice when someone is getting stuck in a mode, right? That it's that we can put that part in its own chair and talk to the chair, or we can name it as you just did, and identify that it's holding a lot of difficult emotions, but it's getting stuck in one particular playbook. And you're trying to really open it up and give voice to many different emotions, and to build that healthy self that can both, assert her sadness, her fear, her anger, but also not do it from a place of constriction where, punishment or safety is always on the line in the way it might have been earlier in the therapy.
Absolutely. That is spot on, Ruth. And I think, as you said, this can be such a beautiful segue to some imagery, right? Can you feel that part of you right now who's so angry at the unfairness of this? I have no place to let anybody know how angry I am. You might go into an imagery exercise, a little rescripting, imagining what it would be like to have that safety as a child, to be able to be heard at moments that were so unsafe and frustrating. It could be a beautiful segue into some chair work, modes in the chairs, right? Be that part of you for a moment that says, no way, I'm not giving him any credit. He's going to pay for this for the rest of time. Just be that part of you, right? And then we can say, now be the part of you who says, I don't want to be a spy for the rest of my life. I don't want to be constantly checking and wondering and watching. I don't want to have to be angry all the time. Let's give a little voice to that kind of vulnerable part of you that just wants to be freed from all of this burden that you're carrying. Can you be that part? Let's hear from her. And then maybe another part that says, don't be a fool. Don't drop your guard for 1 minute. What are you, stupid? You're going to give him credit now so you can just go back to being treated like you're a nobody? You're going to be sorry. You'll regret it. Go ahead and give in to his narcissism. You have the critic side. You have the healthy adult. We can set up a beautiful dialogue in chairs to help her to see who's leading the charge right now. Who's leading the charge, and who, it's usually the vulnerable part, who seems to be fading in the distance, not really getting the attention that she needs, not really getting the care that she needs. And it becomes so clear in those moments, like how the joining of this healthy, wise, loving, good parent with this vulnerable part is so necessary for there to be voice and healing and safety, and still taking it one step at a time. But there can still be some celebration if things are beginning to move in a positive direction.
Yeah, really, really important. And with the wounded partner, as you say, Wendy, it's so, with the depth of the wound that they've experienced, being pulled in so many directions, to the healthy, vulnerable part, or the part that wants to sort of put up the wall and can't trust. for very, very good reason initially. And I was wondering, and we know, of course, that wounded partners, that this is part of the healing process, that they will simply bounce between these different emotional states, initially for probably about 6 months. We know this is the case. How do you sort of see the difference between this and, say, PTSD, in terms of betrayal wounds?
It's not that different, actually. The truth is that betrayal trauma is very similar to PTSD, with one large exception, which is you're living with the perpetrator of the trauma. So in stranger trauma, something that happens outside, you have your sanctuary in your home, and maybe even in your relationship. If it's a healthy relationship, there's a place for comfort, there's a place for security. You can close your door. But when you're living with the perpetrator of the trauma, it's very different, and it kind of keeps it alive. And there's the constant worrying, is it going to happen again? Mixed in with this, for wounded partners, there's also all the regret and self-recrimination. Why did it take me so long? Why didn't I figure this out sooner? How could I have been so stupid? It was right in front of my eyes. I actually had hints of this. I just didn't want to see it. Why didn't I want to see it? I'm such a coward. And so you have all of these super critical, harsh, self-recriminating messages, which is sometimes largely where a lot of the anger is coming from. It's not just anger out there, it's anger at self for this. So, helping one to see the power of that internal critic, to look at the origins of that, like, where would you have come up with something like that about yourself? And wow, that is super important, which I often say to couples when they're dealing with these issues, both to the narcissist as well as the betrayed partner. Wow, that is something really important that's going on right now. Let's take a moment. Let's pause. Let's capture this and reflect on this. This is big. This is important. This is intense. I talk about my D words like I did in the last segment. I'll talk about my I words, which is intensity means important. Important means investigate. Investigate means identify, and identify means intervene. So once you feel that, and intensity isn't always loud, it can be intense silence. Someone just shuts down intensely. I have nothing else to say. Right? Or they're intense in their anger, or they're intense in their blame and criticalness, or in their own self, as I said, self-recrimination, self-criticalness. The intensity is wow, this is important. Let's investigate, let's identify, and let's intervene to help you.
So you're doing a lot of tracking of emotion.
Yes.
And
Yes.
intensity, and guiding, and being directive at times too, about pausing the couple before they move on quickly or stay stuck in a mode. Well, let's see some of this in action, Wendy.
So, we've come a long way, and I know, Ruth, that there's still these moments more recently, as you're seeing some shifts in Robert, there's these moments where it's still very difficult to move away from that anger and suspicion. And I know it just is hard. It takes time.
It does take, but no, Wendy, I mean, so you're going to hear this, because it takes a lot, because, he's still, every time he texts in the next room, every time, I know you're saying, so I know, Robert, you're saying you want to make things better now, but I just can't stop thinking about every time, every single, that woman that you went with, she still lives down the road. I have to go past her house. It's all very well you saying you want to repair, but you know what you've done. Yeah.
Ruth, let me ask you a question right now. This is really important. What's happening? There's something very intense happening, and I want you to just take a moment. Just take a moment to pause. What is it you want Robert and me to know right now? If you could just boil it down to this most succinct feeling, most specific feeling that you're having inside. What do you want him to know? What do you want me to know?
I just don't know if I can ever be safe because of what he's done. And I don't know that, I just don't know if I can forgive him because, you know,
Okay,
it wasn't just one video.
let's just again, let's just stay with the
Okay.
intensity of this moment. I know there's a lot,
Mm.
and I'm only interrupting because I want to stay with the intensity. I don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
I don't know if I can feel safe.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I can even trust myself to know.
Yeah.
I'm going to be burdened with having to be a spy for the rest of my life.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, I'm sick of I'm sick of checking all the time. It's exhausting. Yeah.
So can you just for a moment be that part of yourself and just
Yeah.
say more about the I'm sick of checking, I'm tired, I don't want to be a spy. Can you say more about that? That vulnerable, tired, weary part of yourself?
I am exhausted. I'm exhausted. You know, it's been years now, you know, of having to think, who is that ringing? Is he in the next room texting?
Mm,
It's
mm,
I really want to hope. I really want to hope for change, but can I trust it?
mhm.
You know,
And
and
now I'm gonna put this in a little bit of fast forward just for everyone watching this, just for the sake of time. But I would then ask Ruth, can you now just from the other chair, from that chair over there, could you try and see if you can feel the part of yourself that says, you be careful. Don't you mess this up. You get too laxed and you start appreciating his progress and you watch what happens. Can
yeah,
you be
yeah,
that
yeah. Well,
critic, that guard?
I can totally be there. I mean, I just think, well, you're an idiot. You're an idiot for having it back. You're an idiot for trusting that this is going to work. You
Mm,
didn't see it coming. You didn't see every single betrayal coming. You were in the dark. You're
mm. It sounds to me like that part would need a conspirator, a co-conspirator, like maybe the part that says, I'm just going to keep letting him have it. I am not going to take my eye off this for a minute. I'm not letting down my guard. Does that feel
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And then I would move to the healthy, wise, loving, good parent inside of you who cares about that vulnerable, hurting side. And if that part could sort of stand up and look around at all these different sides in dialogue, what would that side of you want to say to this little committee in the room?
Well, we want to love Robert, and he's trying really, really hard. He's tried really hard for a whole year.
Mm,
And I know you're trying to help me and protect me.
mm.
I know, but it's really just stopping any change.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty powerful. How does that feel as you say that?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel a bit lighter actually for saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The feeling will be hard to sustain, Ruth, because these other sides are fairly strong still. They believe they have your best interests at heart, and they have no real regard for that. I see her as that little you, that vulnerable part who's just so tired so tired of having to be angry, so tired of having to be on guard, so tired. And so yeah, there might be space for actually still recognizing the importance of time and building trust and safety and sensitivity and empathy, but also maybe there's a little room for what you just did so beautifully, acknowledgement of some of the good things that are already happening. How does that
Mhm.
seem?
Yeah, that feels more balanced. Yeah.
Okay.
So what Wendy does really nicely there is she shows how there can be an inner critic which plays a strong part in pushing the hurt partner into more entrenched mistrust. And the way she does it that we see is she uses chair work to explore the size of the client in conflict. So she firstly notices the really vulnerable part, that's, by slowing down and really softening her voice, just to highlight the vulnerability and help the client really feel where she's at underneath all the anger. And then she moves to the inner critic who says, don't you relax too much, you're an idiot for trusting, which really she highlights as a co-conspirator because it pushes the client into more of her mistrust. And it makes her doubt herself and her partner's good intentions. And then finally, she moves the client into a really lovely, kind, reflective stance to kind of really be in what we call the healthy adult self and step back and observe the full picture, kind of really acknowledging the hurt, which is driving the mistrust, but also showing the cost, namely that the little girl inside is really left feeling very unsafe by the mistrust mode.
Okay, good. Okay, so we can maybe talk about that. How did that feel as the client, Ruth?
Yeah, it felt really, I really liked, you were really listening to me, Wendy, and making me feel validated in every experience going on there. But yeah, it really helped to sort of take that last position, and I could physically feel lighter playing,
Nice.
this partner. Yeah. I can see
Good.
it's really powerful technique.
Did you get a sense, Ruth, of how Robert might be feeling if he were in the session? I mean, I might do this with both parties in the session once they've advanced a bit more towards some progress. I don't know that I would do it up front. I would do this probably with her preliminary a little bit more in the beginning on her own. But how did it feel? Just trying to imagine, someone like Robert with his narcissistic impatience, and he's trying really hard, watching this bit of work.
Well, there was a part of Robert who was like, oh, good, she gets to have some time in the chairs. I've had my time in the chairs, now she gets some. So there was a part of him, feeling a little bit pleased about that. But I think that as Robert, part of it was really curious, actually, kind of just starting to go, oh, there's a lot of bits and parts and modes that I don't always see that you're drawing out, and certainly that's tired, sad little part. I could start to feel something shifting in my body. I didn't quite know what it was, but I felt something. So it really was starting to increase my sort of empathic curiosity, I think.
Nice. And there's a lot of traffic in there. These high conflict relationships are, interestingly, so many of these couples have very similar schemas, but their modes are so different. And that usually is what determines the kind of conflict and clash that they're likely to face under these, really difficult conditions like betrayal. But there's a lot of traffic. I say to them, there's so much traffic. It gets chaotic and noisy and exhausting in there. We need to kind of take it apart, really deconstruct it a bit and make sense out of it. And then there'll be some room, some space to breathe, and some room for, things to flow a little bit more easily. So I love to use a lot of metaphor with couples too, really help them and hold a lot of hope there, because we know we can make a difference with this model. Not always. We know there will be some who will choose departure. They'll choose to exit the relationship. We hope they do that from a healthy, thoughtful place and not a reactive place. So that can still be something of a victory for them if it's being done that way. But yeah, couples work is exciting, and it's hard, and it's painful. And again, it's just one of the most at-risk places or fertile places for schemas to be triggered.
Well, thank you, Wendy. It's been a masterclass in some beautiful techniques in working with complex couples who have big challenges in navigating their relationship, let alone their betrayal. So we really appreciate your time today. There'll be details about Wendy's work and training and books available in the show notes at the end.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Thank you.